So you think the universe is conscious and cares about humanity's welfare. How does that lead to Christianity?
I think that Christianity is the only place where I really see the correct morality being practiced. The correct morality like being virtue ethics.
Okay. We have had very different experiences with Christianity. My Christianity really hated gays. That was one of my first clues.
I think hating gays is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be spicy. Sorry. I think it's right to say that under virtue ethics, gays would be better off if they were straight.
Okay. Because?
Strictly because they're not fulfilling the function that humans are supposed to do, which is part of what we do is procreate.
Yeah. Well, I would even say more than that. Is that's a lot of it. But also, there's a lot of parts of you that are oriented towards procreation, right? Like men and women act differently on average to each other. The way that you act, the parts of your brain, the parts of your body, a lot of this is tied up with procreation. And I think that for many people, they will find that parts of themselves are working at cross purposes to other parts of themselves if they're gay.
Like depressed people would be better off if they weren't depressed. People with bipolar would be better off if they didn't have bipolar. But
that's true.
Yeah,
But that means that also we call depression and bipolar mental illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And that necessarily implies that homosexuality is not a condition that's just as valid and equal and desirable as heterosexuality. That is something that people get upset about when you say.
I don't know if I agree with, well, rather, I know I don't agree with that. And I know you're better versed in virtue ethics than I am, but I have to think that there's a version of virtue ethics that would say it's less about being the best version of who you're supposed to be, and it's more about being the best version of who you are. And a paintbrush that wants really bad to be a hammer will never be a good hammer, right? It should focus on
be a good paintbrush either.
Right. So it should focus on being a good paintbrush.
Right.
Right.
So I think that's true. And I'm not totally sure. Well, I think that there are some people who have no choice basically but to be homosexual, and that they shouldn't try not to be.
Every gay person I met, it wasn't a choice.
I
Let me rephrase that. Every gay guy I've met, it wasn't a choice.
My understanding is that for men, it's less often a choice. For women, it's a whole thing. I think you're right that you have no choice but to be what you are. And I would maybe distinguish a couple things here. Number one is that all of us have pieces that are working at cross purposes the way that I've just said. I think that people who are gay are working at cross purposes themselves. I think everybody has this in certain parts of themselves. And I think that this is one of the arguments that points me towards Christianity, right? Is Christianity says that human nature is fallen, it's corrupted somehow, it's not perfect.
It's one of the things I most hate about Christianity.
But it's like, I'm kind of messed up, right? Like, sure. I don't, like, Yudkowsky talks about, like, coherent extrapolated volition. This is a rationalist thing, the idea that, like, if you could take all the things that you want and, like, somehow make them, like, line them up so that they all fit together and then extrapolate that out. Forget about the utilitarian version. I think the human nature, like, virtue ethics version of that, humans are not coherent.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot coherentize a human.
Yeah.
And that means that inherently, some of the things that you are, some of the things that you're made for are going to work at cross purposes. And if your purpose is fulfilling your purpose is sort of being good, that means that you just can't do that if you look only at the stuff that you are naturally about. But nevertheless, I think that there is something, right? Like, there is a coherent version theoretically out there, and I'm not totally sure what it looks like. And this is another reason why Christianity, right? Is Christianity says the version of you basically can't be fully straightened out. It just can't quite work. But there is a perfect version of you, and you need God's help for that, basically. And God will try and help you through the conscience. But with regards to gays specifically, I don't think people who are gay are much different from people who are not gay in this respect of parts of you are working at cross purposes to other parts of you in terms of your natural Aristotelian function. I just think they have a much more socially controversial cross purpose.
How gay someone is partially mediated by society. Like, as we've said, some people are just absolutely flaming gay. Nothing's going to change that, right? Other people can kind of suppress it and be okay.
There's a comedian, I forget how he opens it, and he's like, now, homosexuality is not a choice. We're wearing a shirt that says "cum slut." That's a choice. So, but to your point,
right. Yeah. So society definitely, like, alters how strongly these things are expressed among some people, depending on like where your natural set point is.
Yeah.
So like I kind of see your point, but also a world where everybody is an amazing carpenter is a really bad world because we need people who aren't carpenters too. We need, accountants, for example. And so I think
Do we though?
Sorry. So it's good to have natural human variation inside any society. So the people who want to be and are good at carpentry will do that, and the people who want to be and are good at accounting will do that.
That's right.
And there isn't one person who's like, God damn it, I have to be an accountant. Everyone else gets to be a carpenter, but we need accounting, so I have to be an accountant. So it's good to have some natural diversity in a society, and I think that is a great reason to not go around and trying to suppress all the gays, because gays are great at a lot of things.
Gays perform a very useful function like carpentry.
Yeah.
Well, not like carpentry or accounting, but like something else.
It's clear to me. What is their useful function?
Gays are incredibly overrepresented in arts and fashion, and
So we need the gays so that we can have good media stuff.
I think if you start really suppressing the gays,
Artistic
you're
creativity.
going to have less Da Vinci's.
I would also just point out too that there's this is clear, but
Because Da Vinci famously lived in a time which was very tolerant of gays.
Yes. There were famously less Da Vinci's in Da Vinci's time than there are now, though. I mean, aside from the literal Da Vinci.
right there was just the one, but this has been I think implicit, but it's worth making explicit through this part of the conversation that in the sense that an Aristotelian might say that a homosexual person isn't flourishing to the maximum that they could be because they're not maximizing their humanness. That is different than Christians saying they should be burned at the stake.
I agree. Yeah, I don't support burning anyone at the stake. I actually have gay friends. It's
Yeah, 100%. And I knew all that was clear, but it's worth just spelling out that like there's a difference between saying failure to thrive at 100% and condemnable. Those are very, very different things.
And I think some gay people thrive a lot more than straight people. Like there's a lot to be said for having a family life. You live on the outskirts of the city, in the suburbs. You have a woman you love. You have a beautiful life together. You have children you raise. Like it's a great life. But there's also something to be said for the people who are like, I would die in that life. I would feel strangled and smothered. I need a life of like bombastic, going out, doing wild things, like really exploring the edges of the human condition. And
for how long, you think?
I don't know. For how long is less of an important question to me as opposed to how many. Like if you have half the human race doing this, that's going to be bad. That's not.
Oh,
enough
I thought you
people.
meant you personally.
Oh, no. But some percentage of humans doing this is actually really good. They explore the edge cases, and that's
people who are called to that should do that.
Yeah, and so the Aristotelian sense that like if you aren't reproducing and fulfilling your function, you aren't living a full human life is, I think, wrong because it implies that everybody has the same end purpose. Is the kind of thing that I would think is a word that would resonate with you.
Yeah. I might try and put this somewhat differently. You can tell me if it captures the same thing you're talking about. So what everyone is self-contradictory. Even if you have the divine, straightened out, right, uncorrupted version of people, I don't think that everyone looks the same there. I don't think everyone should try to do the same thing. Like I don't think you should do what's right for me. I think you should do what's right for you.
Isn't Christianity pretty bad at catching that nuance?
I don't think so.
No.
What do you, how specifically?
I do think it's more conformist. And I think for good reason, most people have much better lives if they follow the standard success spiral.
Wait, do you think Christianity 400 years ago was more conformist?
No. You seem to be arguing that Christianity has some kernel of truth to it, though.
Yeah.
Doesn't that imply that, like, people should be Christian?
I think people should be Christian.
If it's bad at having not just acceptance, but even celebration of some level of human diversity to do these outlier things, I don't think that's ideal then. I think it is kind of repressive.
If you imagine like the age of exploration where people were going out and pushing the boundaries and doing adventurous things, right? Those guys were mostly Christians.
Those guys also...
Or they were closeted if they weren't, right? Like,
yeah. But I also think that they would use an interpretation of the Bible that you would not be very happy with nowadays.
I honestly don't know enough about it to know.
Okay. And some of them definitely had to like push the envelope in secret or against the will of the church, right?
Well, even if you're like following the will of the church, that reinterprets the will of the church as go subjugate the natives.
The church actually argued against that. They had debates on, and the guys who were going and subjugating the native were like, yeah, these guys are just like, they're natural slaves. We ought to be in charge of them. And the church was like, that doesn't seem right. Stop doing that.
Well, that's good.
And then they were like, no. And then the church was like, we're going to go make them Christians because it's illegal to have Christians as slaves.
Oh, shit. Was that their motivation?
That was a lot of the motivation, yeah. It's because they were opposed to the practice. It sounds like you're saying Christianity advocates for living a certain kind of life that not everybody is well suited for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's contradictory to saying everyone should do the thing that they're built for if some people are built for not that kind of life.
And that Christianity does the opposite of celebrating divergent people. What am I trying to think? There's a better word for this.
I think I would deny that Christianity encourages everyone to do the same thing. And what was the second thing? I don't remember the second thing.
The second thing was that even when they do encourage people to do mostly good things, it's out of whack with the current context.
What does that mean?
That means that some of the morality that is even the basic accepted morality in Christian churches just isn't moral in the current context.
Is this about sex again?
That is the first example that comes to mind, yes, but that isn't the only example.
That's not a bad example to maybe to harp on for one more beat, because like the Bible's pretty clear. Well, actually, no, it's vague, but it was interpreted to be extremely clear about its stance on homosexuality, right?
I would not say it is vague at all.
Oh, wait, right. The thing about masturbation is pretty vague. Isn't
Right.
My understanding was that it's mainly because the guy failed to come inside his brother's wife, and that was the bad thing he did, not the fact that he's fucking his brother's wife.
His brother was dead. He had an obligation to fuck her, actually.
Right, I know, but like obligation to fuck, it's all that's all weird too. But leaving all that aside, like
Thomas is face palming really hard right now.
well, maybe let's dig into that face palm actually, rather than dig into more examples. Is it because like, man, yeah, Christianity or whatever, the Bible missed the mark on that, or is it because these guys are having the conversation at the wrong level?
No, it was a good thing at the time. Otherwise, this woman was going to die because she didn't have...
Let's take its historical stance on homosexuality then, or whatever. Like, what were you face palming specifically? Was it us sitting there masturbating about the dumb points of Christianity?
Just like the phrasing.
I was using shorthands to try and get to a point quickly, and then realized I never got there.
It was quick. My earnest belief on this, such as it is that any belief system or organization or institution that has enough power is going to be trying to control people and trying to make them do certain things. Condemning homosexuality in the strongest possible terms is on the level of societies and cultures adaptive, because it means that you're going to have more kids probably. And it means that you're going to be encouraging people to marry and to reproduce and to not do anything other than that, even if that's not your nature, right? I don't think homosexuals should be burned at the stake. I think people who do think that are terrible. I think that probably comes out of Christians trying to it comes from Christians becoming hegemonic, right? Like, I don't actually know what the status of homosexuality was in early Christian communities. I'm sure insofar as knowledge of this exists, like people have gone back and forth on it forever, and I just never bothered because this was not ever a debate that I was interested in back when it was happening. Imagine it probably was not burning people. It might have been, you're not allowed to be openly engaging in this practice that our people don't say is cool. I think that latter thing is totally fine. I think it's fine for a community to say, we don't want people who openly engage in this practice that our community does not approve of. I think it's still fine, like when Catholics say we don't want to give communion to divorced people because we don't believe that divorce is real, and so you're living in sin.
Communities are allowed to have their own norms.
Communities are allowed to have norms, right? The burning people and that sort of thing, a lot of like the Catholic, like you're going straight to hell if you do this or that thing too. I think a lot of that comes from the church being hegemonic and being sort of in control and having to run societies. I think that a lot of that stuff is wrong. I would say maybe some of it's directionally correct. I don't have like a full list here to say like, yeah, wrong, okay, right. But like that sort of thing, the like strict punishments and even like strict temporal punishments for sins, that strikes me as an artifact of just having an institution or some sort of structure in charge of governing a lot of people, and not an artifact of a spiritual practice.
That it wasn't the Christian part of the culture at the time doing it, was the government part of the time doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I was intending to communicate was that this is favored by natural selection of cultures, because the cultures which reproduce more and become larger will become better able to dominate cultures which don't.
Right. That seems a argument for practicality and not something that is necessarily good, though.
I agree.
Okay.
I don't think that burning homosexuals at the stake is good.
I'm not even talking about burning homosexuals at the stake. I'm just talking about encouraging everybody to have a family and have children in very strong ways.
I'm not sure that people were always very strongly encouraged for religious reasons specifically. Like, I think the encouragement is there. I don't know that the strength of it was there, right? Like, you had a bunch of bachelors roaming around in Victorian England.
My question is about practical versus goodness. You made the case that practically this is the best thing for society, and sure, I can totally get along with that. Having a larger population, yes. That's different from the good entity that cares about humans would want to maximize this in human societies because of the goodness value.
So yeah, like when you were talking earlier at the beginning about stuff like what suited, like this was good 2,000 years ago, but not now or whatever. I think that there's something similar that goes on with cultural evolution, right? Is like you've got what humans are built for, and you've got what produces the most successful societies, and those are not exactly the same. And then you've got this other layer of things like, people trying to control people, trying to, come up with feedback structures that can help them maintain power, or good memes that propagate well, stuff like that. I think all of these things are bundled together in, say, Catholicism. I don't know enough about various Protestant denominations to know how much is in there, right? I barely read the Bible. I have read some of it, and I like what I've read, to be clear. Most of what I see, I like and I think is good, but I expect that there's stuff in there, and I do actually have a couple things in mind that seems like it's culturally adaptive, but not individually adaptive, or not individually good, in fact, not fitted to human nature. That not like an evolutionary adaptive, but like good as in befitting human.
If we ignore Christianity entirely now,
Mhm.
and we're just talking about is it okay to call God the entity you're thinking of? That
I call it God.
okay, so the God
It's
thing.
more like a person
Okay,
than it is like physics.
okay, so the God person, does it maximize the amount of families and people having children, and that is the good?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, if I'm hearing it right, it's not doing much. It's there. It's not there making people conceive babies or
yeah, no, not like doing it directly, but through whatever.
I don't think God is wanting to tile the universe with humans.
Okay,
He's not a human maximizer.
okay. It sounded like you were saying that having families and children is a good TM part of being human and fundamental to humanity.
I think both those things are true. Yeah. Like I think making music is a fundamental good part of being human too, but I don't think God's out there like forcing people to learn the violin.
I want to just weigh in very briefly and say that I think that those things are all true for humans in aggregate. I don't think those things are true for any individual human.
Right.
I think they're true for most individual humans.
I suppose. I mean, it's possible I'd flourish more if I tried to learn an instrument, for example.
Yeah.
But it's also possible that I wouldn't. I happen to be completely tone deaf. So I might just forever suck at it. And it might take me tens of thousands of hours of investment that could be better spent actually making my life better. Because some people don't want to be parents for good reasons or bad reasons, but when they're good reasons, it's not like I don't think they're failing to maximize by not becoming parents.
So like, I think humans are different, but not that different. You can say it would be meaningful and good for you to have kids and be right most of the time. I don't think that's a stretch. I think also it's like you might find music to be an important part of your life. I think that's also maybe, you throw a rock, you might hit truth with that one.
I agree with the most part as well when you had said that, most people would thrive and have better lives as parents, but I don't think I just want to make sure I shine a spotlight on this, that I don't think that someone's failing to maximize their potential as a human if they decide not to have kids and then don't. It's true for most people maybe that they'd be better at being themselves and being the most they can be if they had kids, but I don't think it's true for everyone who is capable of having kids.
I might say something stronger that I think in our current age, people are too fearful and too hesitant and find many reasons to not have kids.
Yeah.
And I think that many people who decide not to in the present day would actually be better off, happier, more fulfilled, more doing what they were made for if they had kids.
I can agree with that too.
Like my strong belief is I think this is good for most people, and for the remainder, I have no strong opinion about whether it would be better for them to do it or to not do it, because I don't, probably depends on the person. There's like individual details. I'm not trying to make any strong claims either way about that, but I think that for most people, yeah, it would be good. And I think that includes today, I think also the majority of people who decide not to have kids and then don't do it, maybe you're making a mistake.
I just don't think that that's true for every human.
I'm agnostic about that, right? It sounds like you're saying there are definitely a subset of humans that's not right for.
I think so.
Yeah, and I'm saying there's a subset of humans that I don't know how to properly evaluate.
That's fair. What I love about this whole conversation is I think that there's actually very little daylight between almost everything that you and I believe. There's one really bright spot that seems to be different, but other than that,
I'd say it's bright.
Yeah, but other than that, I think I'm on board with all of it. And that being, I think like I'm not. This should have been like the first question, and maybe this is a bad last question, but like the reason that I agree with almost all of what you said, except for all of the parts where you talk about there being a God that exists. I don't believe that part, but the rest of it I'm on board with, because I don't think you need the God part for that stuff. It's like, with Buddhism, I love a lot of it, and you can get like all the benefit out of it if you take out all of the wishy-washy magic bullshit. You don't actually need any of that for the best parts of Buddhism. I don't think you need any of the God stuff for the best parts of what you're saying.
I think that's actually that's kind of illuminating. I don't think I have changed very much from where I was before, but also it seems like everything's changed. And I mean, this ties into what I was saying about like beliefs which affect how you approach the world, but don't affect like what you predict. Like I have a certainty and a self-assuredness that comes from God that I did not have when I didn't believe in God. I feel like I don't have a choice now, right? Like maybe I could be. It's hard to entertain counterfactuals about things that you think are true, because then if someone comes to you with an argument, you just be like, well, that argument's wrong because you're arguing for something that's fake.
Yeah. What it comes down to, I think that the difference between like your outlook and mine is that you've had a personal revelation that you can't communicate to me.
That's true.
In principle. See, I don't think we actually really disagree on any claims that really matter, other than like maybe the claim that no, there is a God that exists and does and cares about us, and like, that is actually, that does sound like maybe to many people the most important claim in the universe.
I would say that's a claim that matters a lot to me.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't matter a lot to you, I can't make it matter a lot to you.
Well, if it were true, it would matter a lot. But like, it's interesting because
if it were true, it would matter a lot.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, I agree, and I'm not the least bit trying to besmirch or put down at all what you're saying and thinking.
By the way, it is true. It does matter a lot.
I appreciate and respect your position there. I don't share it, but I'm not giving you a hard time about it.
Right, yeah.
What I'm enjoying though is how much overlap we actually have, even with that big piece missing. We can share really the common project of wanting to uplift humanity, make the world a better place, and live the best lives that we can for ourselves and those around us. That all stays true whether or not we share the single belief about God.
It's really weird. I had a friend in my 20s, very much aligned on all sorts of things, right? Really smart, rational kind of guy, devout theist. And I asked him, like, why do you believe in God? It seems crazy. Like, this is in the thick of the atheism wars, right? Like, there's no evidence for it, etc. He said, I took a lot of LSD one day, and I got to actually meet God. And then after that, I believed in him. And I was like, okay. And like, that was the end of the conversation. Like, what could you possibly argue against? He literally met God, right? Yeah. And it just struck me like, but it was LSD. Like, you know exactly why you had this experience. And he's like, yeah, but I got to meet God. That makes a difference. I was kind of hoping that you would come and there would be like something. I'm not saying this is the exact same thing as the I took LSD and I met God thing, but like, it's just personal revelation. And like, he had personal revelation mediated by LSD, and you can't argue against that aside than like, it was just LSD, man. And you have personal revelation that's not mediated by LSD, but
I'm sorry I don't have more that I can impart to you.
No, it just feels like, as somebody from a rationalist background, like I too have touched God on drugs, but like I knew it was on drugs. It worries me that somebody who is deep enough in rationalism that you've thought as a rationalist since 2017 to then have personal revelation, and instead of being like, oh, okay, this is what brains do sometimes, that you're like, oh yeah, okay, no, okay, there is an entity that cares about humanity.
I have had experiences. I've been brought to tears by the presence of God before and written it off as, okay, this is just a thing brains do sometimes.
Okay.
Right? Like
what happened?
What happened when?
What happened that you stopped doing that and being like, oh, okay, there actually is a thing out there. It's not just what brains do, it's something touching me from outside. Like, that's the part that I think epistemics should help you with, and you had strong rationalist epistemics, but it didn't.
What happened is that it's evident to me that I really have no choice but to believe that the universe is deeply good, and it also seems to me that the universe is aware, and so if you have something which is aware and also, like, deeply good, perhaps goodness itself, and is at least the size of the universe, this seems an awful lot like you're pointing at God.
Yes, but the thing is,
that's all that happened.
Epistemics would tell you that I have this feeling is not a good reason. You need something much better than that, some sort of evidence and a logical chain that leads that evidence to where you are. And that didn't happen in this case.
If the revelation is strong enough, it overrides all of that. Like, you just know.
That's the thing that worries me. I've touched God. I once had a UFO experience. And again, that time also I was like, neat. This is, this, I know why this kind of thing happens. Oh my God. It worries me that knowing didn't change things.
If you believe, as I do, that God is real and out there, this is a thing that might just happen sometimes and lead you to true knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you're committed to not that belief, it must be an error, right? There must be something wrong going on. Most rationalists are committed to something like materialism more deeply than like anything else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I've been trying to approach this. I think that there are pretty good priors for the existence of God. I think there are pretty good posteriors for the existence of God, right? Like, I don't think this is a far-fetched belief, and I think that a correctly calibrated, epistemically calibrated person ought to believe that it's not such a far-fetched thing. And I have been struggling to put some of these arguments into terms that I think rationalists will find amenable, partly because I think rationalists are predisposed to be against this on principle. So like, take Solomonov induction, for example. Rationalists following Yudkowsky believe that Solomonov induction is the right way to set your priors over beliefs, over, let's say, explanations for hypothesis, right? Whereas an explanation is something like a computer program that gives rise to the observed phenomenon. And the computer program has to be, you can write it in whatever language you want, but it will have what's called a Kolmogorov complexity, which is the length of the shortest program that can give rise to the phenomenon after you run for an infinite amount of time. So if you go back and read the arguments for this, I understand that there maybe are some mathematical arguments to why this is the right thing that you ought to do. It seems plausible enough for me, right? It's trying to formalize the notion of simplicity in Occam's razor into something that we can talk about. So what's in this computer program that gives rise to things? Let's talk about like consciousness, for example, because I think this is an easier one than goodness. And I apologize because goodness is the one that you have trouble with. But I want to talk about this for a second because I think that a lot of people will say minds are very complicated, right? There's so many atoms moving around. It must take a very long program to describe a mind. I think that consciousness is something extra, right? I think that it's not necessarily in addition to minds, but I think that like if you describe the whole brain, you don't automatically then also have experience, I suppose.
So I'm on record as disagreeing, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of people disagree with me on that, but the consciousness, it is the most gappy part in the whole God of the gaps of the modern world thing, right? Like this is one of the places you can still hide.
It's the one thing that I'm literally more sure of than anything else in the entire world.
This is the one thing that everyone in the modern world is more confused about and has less agreement of than anything else. It is like gravity or magnetism or whatever from 2,000 years ago. We don't know why fire happens. God did it. It's like, we don't know why consciousness happens. God did it. It's just, it is such...
I mean, I do think God did it in like whatever the abstract.
Yeah, okay, not literally God did it, but what I'm saying is it is one of the most scientifically, philosophically confused, murky place that we have in the modern world. And so naturally, if you wanted to, I hate to use the word hide, but hide some sort of mysticism in something, you would do it in the realm of consciousness.
Right. I mean, consciousness it's the one fact which is accessible to everybody, which is not amenable to analysis by the very formidable analytic toolkit that we've invented.
But that used to be true of everything. It just feels like give it another century and then everyone was going to say, oh, wow, I can't believe people used to say that because of we don't understand consciousness. That is a good argument for God.
I think sometimes, you know how System 1 is good at stuff? You know how System 1 is sometimes really good at stuff and System 2 like just can't even figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I can rely on God feels like System 1 knowledge that I don't know how to System 2ify. That's not satisfying because you want a System 2 explanation of it. And I think any formal epistemic explanation of it is going to be in those terms. And I don't know how to put it in those terms, but I am sure I can rely on this. And I'm sorry I didn't have the explanation that you were looking for.
No, I mean, it's okay. It's just frustrating that the surety comes from a place of intuition.
From a place of trust.
And of personal...
It's not the same thing.
Of personal experience that can't be relayed to somebody else. And I think that's fine. Like,
I don't think it's fine. I think this is why we have epistemics.
well, so like you mentioned you met God on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. What I have experienced on drugs is ego death. Which, despite the name, is actually, well, it's neither great nor bad. It's
kind of boring.
Well, the thing is, it's actually perfectly fine. The thing about that is that is actually a truth that I can bring back from the trip that stays true when I'm not on drugs. I think people who experience it often toss it out the window with all the other shit they saw when they're on drugs because, like, the carpet's not moving, clouds don't turn in spirals, whatever. So, like, they throw out that insight of their mind out as well as in the bag of nonsense they experienced on that drug trip. But that's actually a fact about your internal experience that you discovered on the drug trip that you can rediscover while sober. I'm not saying that you should like up the fact, up the your confidence that you actually met God on drugs. What I'm saying is that like it's possible to have very profound experiences that you can't communicate to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's even possible to have them not on drugs.
Right. Exactly. Yes. For whatever it's worth, I really enjoyed this conversation a lot more than I did somebody was trying to convince me of their truth claim that we had last year.
Right.
That sucked. We talked with the author of the blog Bentham's Bulldog.
Oh, you talked with Matthew?
Yeah. For a couple hours.
That's right.
And he tried to hammer home the most convoluted argument in favor of God that I've ever come across in my many years.
Psychophysical harmony.
No.
I'm worried that one's terrible.
Worse. Although he would say it's better than that one. And I don't want to...
Apologetics?
Yes.
Oh, it can't be right.
If you throw enough math and smarts at it, it sure sounds compelling to some people, at least to its author. But that conversation felt way less fun and connecting and worthwhile than this one. Rather than Thomas here explained why we're idiots for not understanding his arguments, I appreciated walking through the journey with him and seeing all the places where we align and the small parts where we don't, and seeing that we can actually collaborate perfectly fine, rather than being talked down to like an idiot for not being able to follow some bullshit mathy argument.
Yeah, but I'm really frustrated by the trust part that you said, because the thing I have learned, what was it? Bertrand Russell, right? Said the easiest person in the world to fool is yourself.
I'm sure lots of people say that, I think.
Was it Feynman? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it was Abraham Lincoln.
It's probably Einstein. Like, the thing is, I literally do not trust certain mystical intuitions, and I think for really good reason. And I think historically all the evidence points towards you shouldn't trust them, because those are very common among humans, and we understand why, and they're not trustworthy. Like, it is the least trustworthy thing.
You shouldn't trust them because they're common?
No, you shouldn't trust them because they're provably not trustworthy throughout all of human history, and even in your own life.
In my own life, they've been trustworthy. I don't think that all feelings are alike, I guess. Can you make the case that you're trying to make a little more clearly? Because I think I know, but I don't have anywhere to grab on.
My case is that personal revelation is actually terrible because it is provably throughout all of history the least reliable way to get any sort of actual truth. It'll always give you things that might be useful to you personally right then, but never the actual truth of things. And even personally useful to you, oftentimes not true. Leads people to death, frequently. But people really love personal mysticism because it feels very true. And one of the reasons we have epistemics is because there is this common failure mode in all humans where these sorts of personal revelations feel very true and you just start believing them. And we need some way to be able to tell when our intuitions are actually wrong. And that is a common occurrence in humans. And so just jettisoning all that and saying, but this time I actually really totally feel that this experience is true, is kind of a bad thing to do.
So I think that my experience here is the closest thing to a truth claim in it, at least as far as I'm using it, is what purpose should I be serving? I don't know of anywhere else that I could look to get an answer to that would falsify this.
Wait. I'm sorry. That was a huge leap. What purpose should I be serving? Is God telling you what purpose you should be serving? Where are you getting the answer to that? And how does that have to do with whether you believe in a supernatural entity?
I'm not just admitting that I believe that the universe is good. I'm also trying to align myself with it. That's what I mean by what purpose should I be serving. That's the case in which this belief is steering my life, right?
Can I weigh in?
How would it be false?
I think, like, all I can think of in this is being the one is like being in love. No one can tell you that you're the one or that you're in love. You just know.
Well, he just asked, how could it be false? It could be false if there isn't an entity that is dedicated to goodness.
But you're hung up a lot more on this entity than I am.
I'd like to believe true things.
I think it's less distant than you think. Like, Eneasz, you think you're in love.
Mm-hmm.
I can't challenge you on that.
Sure.
Where would I stand to say I disagree?
You could challenge me on whether or not Jennifer exists. And I think you got pretty good evidence that she does.
I suppose that would be one place to do it, but even if she didn't, your love would still be real.
That really depends on what you mean by love. Like, if you can love an imaginary entity, then sure.
I suppose, but like,
you wouldn't be wrong about your experience, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be wrong about your love itself. It would mean that you're confused about, you keep going to someone's house. But it's funny because I haven't had this revelation. Maybe this is why I don't feel like a great rationalist all the time, is I'm open to the possibility that something like that could happen.
Yeah.
And that would be compelling enough for me to say, well, shit, I can't explain this in my toolkit. And yet I've never been sure of anything in my life.
I'm not arguing with Thomas's emotions. I don't care to argue about people's emotions. I'm not even arguing with the idea that it's impossible for there to be a God. Like, sure, maybe there is, but whether there is the important question, and the emotions have nothing to do with that.
Whether there is not a very important question to me. I think it's true, but like...
How can you say that? I can say that it's not important whether God actually exists.
Because the universe is good, and we should do our best to be good and align ourselves with that, whether or not God's real. Am I following correctly?
Yeah, basically.
Because that's how far I'm on.
Then why even posit a God?
I didn't at first.
Okay.
Right? Like, I was doing this for months until I started saying, I know what my purpose is. I'm going to align with the goodness that's in the universe, like in April. And it wasn't until August that I was like, oh, wait, shoot. If you put that together with the consciousness thing, it's like, that looks an awful lot like God. And I know what I have to do, right? I know that doing what I have to do is good. And I understand that in a Christian framework, goodness is God. I'm going to do goodness. If that's God too, great. I'm on board. I believe it is God. But if someone could come along and convince me with some piece of evidence or some argument that says like, oh, no, it's totally different, that's not God at all, that wouldn't change what I'm doing. It wouldn't change what's good. It would just change how I think of what's good.
So what I'm hearing is the emotional effects were so positive for you that you stopped caring about epistemic rigor.
No.
I don't know if jumping in here would derail you or if you want a moment to think.
Jump in if you want.
One way to convince you that your love isn't real would be to say that Jen isn't real. If I could demonstrate to you that Jen, as you imagine her, isn't real, when in fact, this is all a matrix and she is a simulation, and yada, yada, like, I could change enough of the factors to where, like, the statement that you say now, Jen is real and I love her, is no longer true as stated, but it stays true enough through all these weird twisty things.
No, there is no true enough. I love Jen because of who she is.
I think that's one part of it, right?
But who she is, but like, what if who she was a splinter of an AGI that's running the simulation that you live in? You would love that, right?
I don't know if I would.
You might. Maybe.
When you said just a second ago, you said there's no true enough. When you're talking about how are you living your life, I think you should be truth satisficing and not truth maximizing. You should be truth seeking. I think I have come to understand something partly by means that are epistemically rigorous and partly by means that are not. And I think that there are epistemically rigorous means by which it could be understood, but I can't quite put it all together yet. It is a work in progress. I will publish it when it's done. It will be in pieces. I am not going to let my not having a positive path from A to B make me get up from B and say, well, I guess I shouldn't be here, and walk back to A. It's enough for me that I'm at B, and to try and build a path that could maybe lead other people here.
Why do you want to lead other people there? Because to me it sounds like I want other people to abandon epistemics when you say that.
If I'm trying to construct an argument that works by the standards of the epistemics that you care about, that's not persuading people to abandon them. That's trying to translate something I already know into a language that I know other people will speak.
Okay.
And you'd want people to join you there because it's a great place to be and the right place to be.
It's the right place to be, yeah.
I completely see where you're coming from.
I'm really glad.
I'm close to you, close enough to reach out and hold your hand, I think, but not quite touching shoulders, almost.
This is the really frustrating thing about religion for me, that it does provide great value to people, especially on a psychological and community level, and yet it's impossible to have it without having false beliefs. And I want to figure out how to fix that last part.
I don't think I have false beliefs. I think I have true
but
beliefs.
we disagree on that.
I think I have true beliefs that I merely don't quite have the language to persuade you of.
Yeah. That looks like having false beliefs from the outside.
I know.
Yeah.
From the angle I'm looking at it from the outside, it looks like what you just said, that you have beliefs that I'm not convinced of, but that I don't need to be to pick up with the rest of what you're putting down. It doesn't look like having false beliefs so much as it looks like having maybe a couple extra ingredients to a recipe that I'm signed up for already. That was not nearly as eloquent as it felt nice in my head when I was thinking it, but it did not come out as clear as I meant it to.
If you can actually publish this thing and be convincing, I would love that.
I can actually publish it. I don't think you'll be convinced by it.
Right. That's the thing. I strongly suspect it's going to be like another Bentham's Bulldog or another Thomas Aquinas. It's going to be like every single case of theism in the past trying to justify itself. And then you look at it and you're like, boy, they certainly went wrong there.
We're coming up on the 3-hour mark, and so I don't want to open up a huge can of worms, but I do want to just...
You guys always go 3 hours?
No. Well, it's usually 90 minutes. So I do just want to knock on this can of worms, even if we don't open it all the way. Like, am I correct in assuming, Eneasz, that like what would convince you of the truth of a religious claim would be like, no, how about Jesus flies down from heaven and shows us his magic powers?
No, that wouldn't convince me.
Because that would be good evidence of a simulation.
What would convince you?
Yeah. Because like if the answer is nothing, then you're basically in a spot that you're disparaging, right?
I mean, for starters, if there was actual proof of panpsychism, that would be a really good start, because part of your claim rests on that, right?
Yeah.
There seems to be also, and this was the case, I think, with Bentham's Bulldog as well, the idea that there is a thing that is good, in quotes, that is quantifiable in some way, that is outside of humans existing. Like, I've talked to other people that said, like, if there was no conscious life anywhere in the universe, there would still be things that are good, in quotes. And I'm like, that's not what good means. So if there was something like that and you could prove it, that would be another step in the right direction.
Okay. I think, and we'll say this another time, but we'll save a lot of time in the future conversation if we just don't use the word good. Historically, it has been used to mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
And, now it basically means utility maximization.
For utilitarian.
Right. But that's a common use of it. It used to mean you're doing really well. Ted Bundy was a really good serial killer. And I mean that.
Good as opposed to bad, not good as opposed to evil.
Right. I mean, good as... Yeah,
effective.
Yeah, effective. That's what I mean. He was great at being a serial killer. COVID was and to a lesser extent still is, a good virus. It's not morally good that it exists. That's not the kind of good that we're talking about. But so there's some conflation there.
When I run into people who make the arguments from good, they tend to really want to stick the word good, and precisely because it is something that has multiple meanings and you can kind of slip back and forth between them.
Oh, see, I would be way happier than we'll just have one that doesn't use the word good at all. I guess I wanted to bring up like what would convince you, because if the answer is basically nothing, it puts you in a similar boat to the one that you're decrying. That I'm in a position here where nothing can convince me of this. It's almost the same thing as saying nothing can change our mind about this, right?
In general, arguments for goodness, I consider stronger evidence of like a simulation theory, or at least equally good evidence of a simulation theory. You don't need a god. You can have a simulator who is interested in watching humans and also kind of wants the victory condition of the video game. Maybe it's that humans are happy, and that explains a lot of the trend line.
Yeah.
I kind of reject simulation arguments out of hand.
Uh-huh.
I like same way I reject Pascal's muggings out of hand. I don't think that the reasoning models that we have are good for handling situations where you're reasoning as though like there are a bunch of like extra people somewhere that you don't have access to. Maybe there is a right way to account for them. I don't think we have it. I dismiss those without considering them.
Okay. Because our reasoning tools just don't have a good way to handle them?
I'm not convinced that we have a good way to handle them.
Okay.
If you need a fun proof of this, find the 20-minute version of The Repugnant Conclusion from Derek Parfit, and you realize that there doesn't appear to be a good answer to population ethics.
All right. The Repugnant Conclusion is like the good. There's like a trilemma, and that's like the best one.
Yes, but like the fact that it's so messy and none of it's intuitive with like our current moral theories, that's the fun part. Is like that's what I like about it. Is that like
it doesn't work with utilitarian theories.
I mean, or whatever intuitive ones you have, really. If we did it for 20 minutes, I could talk you into a world. I was going to say I could talk you into endorsing a world that is full of people whose lives are barely worth living.
No, you couldn't to me.
Well,
I'm more of a virtue consequentialist.
okay, well then I might need a longer version, or we'll save it for another time. I'm trying to think of a good way to wrap this up, but maybe an abrupter end is faster. I guess
We may just need to make this 2 episodes.
Just cut a whole bunch.
Or that.
Cut every time I talk. Fuck now.
World's best episode. Eneasz goes on a rant for 2 hours.
so. What I'm trying to say is, like, I'm open to the idea of having a personal revelation that makes me believe something that I didn't believe before, right?
You shouldn't be. That's the whole point of epistemics.
The thing is I've had that happen in the past where it's turned out to be true.
Have you ever had it happen where it turned out to be false?
I'm trying to think, like, not one as sure as the insights I had to my own consciousness and my own subjective experience.
No, things about in the real world outside of your subjective experience.
That is the real world. My belief about how my mind works is something that I had fundamental insight change with the aid of psychedelics.
Sure, but that's
I then brought back to my regular life that has had a profound change on my life ever since, and I can access every day.
That's entirely psychological. Like we're talking about revelation of things in the real world, like there is an entity that has power in the universe.
The thing is, like, real world, and I'm not. Tell me something that's the one putting
More that it has power than I am, that it has knowledge.
I don't know if that's a distinction that would satisfy Eneasz whatsoever here.
No. You are positing that there may be an entity that has knowledge of goodness, but that has no effects on anything in the universe?
I think goodness plus panpsychism point towards a universal good awareness. They don't point to anything more than that, right?
That's hold on a second. It is an epiphenomenon. Here is something that has absolutely no effect on anything in the physical world. I guess you can posit a million such things. Who cares?
I care because I have moral intuitions pointing me towards Christianity seems like it's good. Mm-hmm. And then also I have this other line of reasoning that points me towards there's something that has certain attributes, which Christians say God has, which seems to be real. And these are 2 lines of evidence that make me think I should take Christianity more seriously, which I started doing, right? So, like, this is what I was trying to lay out my confidence in things before.
If this thing doesn't have any effect on the real world, why would you take Christianity more seriously? It doesn't affect anything in Christianity either.
So I think it is God.
Uh-huh.
Right? I think God does have power. What I'm saying is that my equation of this thing with God is less certain than my extrapolation towards the thing with knowledge exists.
Okay. The part that I care about in even one tiny bit is that it has power, that it can do anything.
That's why I tried to mention this. Like, that's why I cut in when you were talking just now.
All right.
I do think it has power.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I think God has power.
Okay.
Just trying to lay out where I'm coming from, how I got to where I am. What is the road path? The road passes through an all-good entity that's the size of the universe that knows everything.
Okay. So you start with an epiphenomenon that you like, and then you give it power.
I feel like
That feels like really uncharitable.
I know it is.
like
But isn't that what happened?
I don't know what it is,
Hmm?
but I'm not asserting it's an epiphenomenon.
For a while you thought it was.
I think epiphenomenon is a very technical term.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's one that I have ever endorsed as an I didn't think the thing that I identify as God was an epiphenomenon. I never thought that.
So you, from the very beginning, thought it could interact with the universe in some way, in some causal way.
Yes, although I want to be careful about a cause here, right? Like a funnel can interact with water in a causal way by steering it down a hole, for example.
Yeah.
But if you're just in the water, it might feel like this is the direction water flows in.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the funnel is actually causing it.
Sure.
Okay.
Formal cause.
Yes.
the only like personal revelation that I can think of, I'm trying to think of like other ones that I've had that then I learned were false, and I can't think of any. But again, the insight into consciousness of there is no I behind my eyes, to put it very succinctly and deliberately quickly, that's not a belief that changes anything in the real world, quote unquote. And yet it's true. It's true as a matter of my own introspection. And it's also true in a way that matters, that bears fruit in, the decisions I make and the kind of person I am. And so I'm trying to figure out like that's how it plays out in the real life, is it impacts my actual decisions. But I'm hitting this because I feel like I've got an example of something here that you could see yourself that is the kind of thing that you're deriding here.
No, I think it's totally valid to have insights into your own mind and your own psychology.
Said about God, not upset about personal revelation about yourself.
Yeah.
Personal revelation is meaningful as a connection to yourself, but Eneasz doesn't see how it's meaningful to have a connection to God. If you start from the idea that there's no God, then yeah, of course, personal revelation couldn't teach me anything about him. But also, if there is a God, of course, personal revelation could teach you something about him.
Let me make a stronger claim. My insight taught me something about your mind as well.
Okay.
Yours works the same as mine. There's no eye behind your eyes either. I've learned something not just about myself, but about everybody.
Sure. Okay. I'm willing to accept that. What I mean about personal revelation being absolutely unreliable is that you can't draw a map based on personal revelation. I can't draw a map of Minneapolis from personal revelation.
Right.
That's the thing that people say personal revelation reveals to them sometimes.
That's the thing some people say sometimes. Not the thing that I'm saying, and I don't think the thing that Thomas is saying.
I'm not arguing against what you're saying because I totally believe you can have personal revelation about yourself and about psychology. Thomas is saying that personal revelation gave him insight into things in the world outside of psychology, such as entities that exist or how consciousness works.
I think personal revelation is maybe not a helpful term at this point. I think I want to recontextualize a bunch of stuff that you just said in ways that you will all admit, but then doesn't actually change the point you're making. So let's just skip that.
Aw, that was about to be fun.
I could do it anyway. The only thing that I have that I think you would call personal revelation is this idea that the universe is good and that it's my purpose. I need to align myself with that. And I know Stephen does not like the word good.
I like it when we know what we're talking about.
Okay,
I think it gets murky.
I'm not willing to disambiguate that right now.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
I am not surprised by that.
Purposeful goodness,
Okay.
right?
That doesn't disambiguate anything.
He said he wasn't willing to.
Okay.
I think that's the only thing that I have that you would call personal revelation. Panpsychism just says everything is entities.
That is a controversial claim.
I agree.
Okay. Right.
I mean, if your assertion is I'm making a controversial claim tied
Yeah,
to something else that I can't prove and have no reason I expect to prove, and that leads me to something that you don't like, I agree 100%.
Oh,
That's why I was saying like it's not worth the recontextualization.
Yeah, okay. We're kind of at an impasse and we can stop talking here because mostly it's just like the idea that you...
Probably cut this whole section.
Maybe, no, not the whole section. Just the idea that like I have things that I cannot prove, but I'm going to accept them anyway really... I was about to say hurts me. It doesn't hurt me though, but seeing that happen to...
You feel really disappointed.
Yeah, seeing that happen to a rationalist who I thought like... And I know, not just thought, no, has good epistemics on everything, but like making an exception in this one case, it's like, but why?
I want to ask you, Eneasz, are you open at all to the possibility that like an experience, whether it's something that you see happen or something that you see in your head when you close your eyes, that something could happen to you? You could experience something that would change your mind on this subject? Or are you like in principle against the possibility of any such possibility?
Enough chains of things that I can see will lead me to any belief because that's how I came to all my present beliefs, right? Like somebody took a prism, was it Newton? I don't know. Someone took a prism and split a light beam and wrote down what he saw, and then I read that, and then in science class we took a prism of our own, and etc. Like everything I currently believe has been due to things that I've taken in through my senses. So yes, with enough such evidence.
I guess I meant to ask it in the reverse way, or rather I meant to take it the other way. Like, is there anything that you could experience without your senses that would change your mind on something like this, or on something at all, rather?
That's a very strange question. How could I experience something without my senses?
With your eyes closed, sitting in your bedroom in a sensory deprivation take.
How do you think? Thinking is an experience that you have without your senses.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I can think myself into certain conclusions. Yeah, I could do that.
You ever do math?
I've done math once. It was an ordeal.
All we have to do is get you to sum two numbers that you've never summed before, and you'll have learned something that you've never experienced the outside world. I don't believe that there's a central consciousness behind the universe that's good and anything that I would call God. And yet I'm open to the idea, this is something I've been digging into myself, that is me. If I were to go on that point, I'd spend 3 minutes just psychoanalyzing myself. It's really weird because years ago, I remember in either The End of Faith or in Letter to a Christian Nation, so somewhere between 25 and 23 years ago, There was a line in one of Sam Harris's books where he's talking about Francis Collins, who was the director of the NIH at the time. He had said that Francis Collins described coming to believe in the truth of the Trinity through seeing a waterfall split three ways. And he's like, if that can prove the Trinity and the claim to the Bible, then anything can prove anything.
Right. That's the whole point of epistemics.
But there was a time where I found that completely convincing, and I'm less completely convinced of that now.
I find that worrisome.
I understand that. And I will work on figuring out where I'm at and how to articulate it, but it doesn't feel scary from the inside.
It almost seems like you're asking, is there any one singular experience that I could have in a day that would convince me of this thing that seems to fly in the face of all of physics and everything I know about reality? And the answer to that is no. But like enough experiences with enough chains of logic could convince me of pretty much anything, because that's where I got to where I am right now. And that's the point of epistemics, to prevent one thing like a drug trip or seeing the Virgin Mary in a piece of toast. That's not supposed to be able to change your world. That's not good enough evidence, and that's why we have epistemics.
I agree, that's not good enough. And the thing is, like, it's not just seeing the toast that changes people's mind. It's this ride-along experience that they have with it.
The toast is somehow the last straw.
Right. Or it shines the light on the last straw, however we want to torture this metaphor. I'm a big fan of torture metaphors to death.
I think beliefs are something like a low energy state. Or at least, I think true beliefs are something like a low energy state. I think false beliefs have to push against something, right? They have to push against reality, because a belief is something like a representation of what's out there, or an explanation for it, right? And it's a concise one. It's something that either represents well or concisely. You could somehow get knocked into a low energy state in a way that's not reproducible. And what you're saying is, what if you got knocked into a different sort of state? How can you know the difference unless you know the path that you got there? I think that's a fair critique. All I can say is that from where I'm at, everything looks like this works. I'm not expecting anything to come along and change my mind. Being in this state now, that's all I can tell you, right? Like, I can't tell you just follow this path to get here, because I didn't get here by means of a path like that. I mean, I think if you kept your heart open and were looking for things like this, that would be advice I could give you. I don't think you're wanting to get where I am, though.
I keep my heart very open.
Good. Yeah, I can't give you the path to get here because I didn't get here by means of a path. And I know that you're worried that means I'm in a place that is not down a path that you want to go. I don't know what to tell you. That's just what it is.
I think the path itself is bad. I think this is the very sort of thing that...
the path is epistemics.
I don't think it is. I think if epistemics were stuck to, it wouldn't have led here.
I think there's a cross metaphor here somewhere.
And you also just said you didn't arrive there by the path.
Right. I didn't get here by means of a path.
Oh, okay. Then yes.
If I did, I could give you directions.
Right. Like epistemics is just idea hygiene, right? And
not entertaining ideas that you can't explain how you got them.
Yeah. And just getting rid of that for a while and be like, oh, it'll be okay this one time. I'm like, really? It'll be okay if you don't wash your hands before surgery this one time?
I think the reason why you need to have rules against it is because usually it's okay, but sometimes it's not. And so if you do it, but it's not okay often enough that if you keep doing it, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not often enough for you. Maybe it's often enough as in spread across enough people. It's okay for some people to gamble and it's no problem. But for other people, it might be a problem, right?
I think things like mysticism are particularly pernicious because like anyone can resist an individual instance of it, but face it, depending on your context, maybe every single day of your life, and eventually something might slip in. And I'm not saying you should reject all ideas, right? That's stupid. The whole point
you should reject all ideas whose provenance you don't know.
If you don't have some method of filtering out what is trustworthy and what is not, then you shouldn't just go trusting everything you hear or everything that your intuition says feels good.
I trust that following God will work out for me more than I trust that epistemics will lead me to true facts.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And before I was trying to say, that doesn't make sense. I shouldn't trust that. But I'm done with that, I guess.
Well, I can't think of a better stopping point, and I don't think that's just my full bladder talking. No, I think that's well put. And I honestly, like, I'm not saying in a defeated tone, well, I have nowhere to stand to argue against you. I also don't want to. I respect where you're at.
I appreciate
I respect how you got there. I'm not religion's biggest fan, and I don't think you are either. A lot of people are doing religion wrong. I imagine you would agree, maybe less steadfastly than I would, but like I think that the people who are excited to kill people over their religious miscommunications are doing it wrong.
I think a lot of people are excited to kill people, and religion basically doesn't have much to do with it.
Man, I want to dive into that because I disagree. I do think that, like, in the mind of a suicide bomber, religion has everything to do with it.
I guess, I mean, like, value above replacement or below replacement, right? If you got rid of religion, whatever would replace it would lend itself equally to people being violent towards each other.
Maybe. I've heard that claim, and I am skeptical. That's actually not the core of what I was trying to do, was harmonize.
Projecting.
No, it was good.
Continue.
Well, no, you didn't interject. I put words in your mouth, then asked if they were the right words, and you said no, and that's totally fair. So
I definitely think your religion would lead to a lot less murders than
100%.
jihadism.
I don't like murdering.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, right?
There's specifically a commandment against that.
Yeah.
The second one. Wait.
First.
No, the first is I'm the Lord your God, and you shall have no other God before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
jealousy was the first one. Sorry, that's not the right.
The second is you should make no graven image.
Yeah,
I don't remember which one it is, but it's an important one.
Like the first several are
somewhere in
you got to be worshiping him right.
It's somewhere in the top 10. Again, it's not like you've left me no place to argue against you from. It's that I also am just not inclined to. I like the headspace you're in.
I certainly was hoping this wouldn't be an argument.
Do you reject the Ten Commandments?
No.
Do you accept that you should have no graven images?
In what sense?
In the sense of the commandment that says that.
I actually think the Orthodox Christian position on this is interesting, where they allow depictions of Jesus because Jesus literally was here. He looked like something, but not of God in other ways.
What about the Sistine Chapel? Is that sacrilegious?
I think
that being
probably violates the second commandment, yeah. Not probably. I think that does violate the second commandment.
I love the explanation. I've never understood why crosses were kosher. I'm mixing religions there on purpose.
Yeah.
And now I do. That's fun because
it's a Catholic thing too, right? Like, there's not been a lot of arguments about idolatry in Catholicism, but there was or icons, whatever. And there was a whole bunch of that in Orthodoxy. So they settled on a compromise of, like, you can depict Jesus because he did in fact look like something. But
I love that explanation.
This is the weird thing, and this is why I keep coming back to epistemics are important, because it starts out with, I think there is goodness, and I think the panpsychism might be a thing.
Yeah.
And you fail at you feel applying in my opinion, one would fail to apply epistemics correctly and quickly get from there to the Sistine Chapel as heresy. This is why we have epistemics. Because it sounds so reasonable when you're like, yeah, the universe is good. That's great. And one of the ending spots is, and we shouldn't have painted God on the Sistine Chapel. Fuck Michelangelo.
If they really felt that way, it wouldn't still be there.
Oh, no, they don't feel that way, but the person we're talking to right now does. Maybe he wouldn't use the word fuck for Michelangelo, but it's literal heresy.
So, one of the things that atheists like to say about God is he's a funny man and this guy who tells you what to do. I think that one of the reasons they have that impression is because of imagery like the Sistine Chapel. And I think that this is not just atheists who understand this. I think actually many Christians understand God as being a very nice man in the sky who tells you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that's wrong. And so I understand the second commandment as being a prohibition against depicting God because you're going to depict him wrong. So that seems reasonable to me. To say, oh, they shouldn't have painted God on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel because it violates the prohibition on images. Okay, like, he's there. It's a beautiful painting. I'm not saying we should go chisel it off exactly, but I think it was maybe a mistake.
I gotta say, I've never given it that much thought about the second commandment, and yet that explanation is awesome, and I really like it, actually. It makes it make a lot of sense. Because you're right, in my mind, and in everybody's mind, basically, who's doing it incorrectly, they're picturing God as an invisible man who lives in the clouds with a beard, right?
Yeah.
And gray hair. Like they're picturing a person, and it's
picturing
like
Zeus.
Right.
A lot of this is based on reading the Old Testament.
And the thing is, they're doing it wrong.
Maybe they shouldn't be reading the Old Testament.
That's why there's a rule against depicting it. Now that makes sense. I appreciate that insight. That's awesome.
I think that's post hoc rationalization.
What do you think the OG reason was? Like, because you'd think carving your god's sigil into the skulls of your dead opponents would have been advantageous for the mimetic fitness of the religion. Because especially if you're out there conquering, be like, look, we're the ones who did it. Our God's right. God's on our side. I could see that being an argument in favor of depicting the God. Do you think that's a post hoc rationalization? What do you think is the pre hoc rationalization then?
I am pointing out that it is silly to start with there is goodness in the universe and end up with that art that we have on top of the Sistine Chapel is actually a bad thing.
Oh, I thought you were saying that the explanation that Thomas gave about why the second commandment is there.
Oh, I do think that's a post hoc explanation that they made up now. I don't know what the original one was. I wasn't around back then, but I kind of doubt it was because people are going to get the wrong idea that God is an old man in the sky. Like, that is a very 20th century kind of thing. And I don't think it would have even occurred to people back then.
I'll look into it.
I think it was far more likely just to be a feeling of sacredness that you are transgressing upon the holy if you try to do this thing.
Sounds a lot like what Thomas just said.
I don't think they're very different.
Okay, they feel very different to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am coming up on not just the limits of my physical body, but I'm the one who's plugged into a computer that's not plugged into the walls. So I only have so much time left.
We could keep going on this for a long time, but we better not.
Okay.
Yeah. But this was awesome. That's why we went on so long. Thank you so much for talking.
Thanks.
I thought this was a very fruitful and enjoyable conversation.
Thank you for coming on and submitting yourself to our inquisition. I hope it wasn't too terrible.
I'm a little disappointed with how I have handled myself, but I've had a great time chatting with you both.
Oh, what do you mean how you handled yourself?
I wish I would have been able to be less big.
Do you know why you were not able to be less big?
No. I haven't worked it all out enough. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
I've enjoyed this conversation very much. I think it's been good.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a similar project where it's all too vague for me to communicate appropriately, and it drives me nuts because then I can't actually convey it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on a different thing, but I share your frustration. Although I imagine yours is stronger because you're conveying something that's probably more important to you than what I'm trying to convey is important to me. Even though what I'm trying to convey is the recipe for being happy. So we'll save that for another time too.
Leaning hard on vagueness should be at least a yellow flag.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's hard to convince somebody of something when you're just giving vague gestures. In fact, you shouldn't be convinced by that. So no, I understand. Anyway, let's call it. And
thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Eneasz, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
When you, me, and Thomas were talking, there was some conversation about, and it's been now, I don't know, a month, so it's a bit vague for me, but I remembered the topic switching briefly to living the, as Aristotle would describe, the virtuous life and the purpose of being human. You know, so there was some of that conversation. The subject of homosexuality came up and how that, to an Aristotelian view, wouldn't be definitionally flourishing. And I think I had just explained what Thomas was pointing at. I wasn't like giving my take on it, but I remembered like just giving him like a sentence, like, no, because they can't reproduce, or something like that. So to be clear, this was not a moral stance I was taking. This was a descriptive shortcut I was taking.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could plausibly misinterpret me, but the thing is, in one of these days, you and I should sit down and just talk about virtue ethics, because I think there's a way that this could transform the way you think about good or right and wrong, good and evil.
Okay. I'd be down.
Because it's very different from how we use the word. The short version is that we kind of conflate a lot of stuff when modern parlance, when you talk about morality, it's kind of like separate from the rest of your life. Like, you know, all right, I've lived my life, now I'm going to go do something moral this afternoon. That's living your life well, or being a good person, were the same thing. To that end, like, I don't know if it would be a moral wrong, but like I think we talked about, you know, hammering nails and stuff. Like using a hammer to open a beer bottle is not the correct use of a hammer. And I don't know if Aristotle would say it's morally wrong to use it that way, but it would be wrong to use it that way. It's the incorrect way to use a hammer. Whereas like for us, there's nothing even approaching morality about that action, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me digress on that briefly. We'll get back on track.
Okay.
So
me and Thomas had talked a few times previously about the whole religion thing, and I had just been somehow disappointed that the tools of rationality had failed him in this case. And ultimately, I've kind of been sort of persuaded to maybe the tools didn't fail him. He just failed to apply them. But
that's in the early sequences. The amateur will say, my art has failed me. The expert will say, I failed my art.
Yeah. So he had been saying that a lot of these beliefs, like actually believing that the Earth is 6,000 years old, okay, like what does it matter? It's just a bit of identity flare. His boss is incredibly smart, lives a good life, doesn't have any issues in his functioning in the world, and believes that the Earth is 6,000 years old, apparently. Like, whatever. It seems like his argument is there's a lot of value in being religious, and if you have to like have some beliefs that are kind of silly, but that don't have any impact on the real world, that's fine. But then we got to talking to him more, and some of the beliefs are that, like, well, maybe being gay really isn't a great way to live. On the one hand, I see what he's saying. Like, I kind of feel the same thing about changing your sex. I think that if you can avoid it, you should. And too many people jump to it too quickly. So I'm sympathetic to his view. I have friends who I think take too many drugs. It's their lives, whatever. I could be wrong about that. There's just so many things where, like, I might have some personal disagreements with how someone's living, but whatever. I'm not going to interfere with their lives. And I think Carrie was doing the same thing with the gay people. But, like, his supposed, beliefs don't have any big difference leads him to say one of these things like, yeah, maybe being gay is bad. And then also, maybe the Sistine Chapel is heresy and shouldn't have been painted, because the second commandment is actually really important and a moral thing that we should care about. And I'm actually, these beliefs, they seem to actually be having some effect on your life. I think my main reservation with all this is that, sure, maybe most of the time in your life, these beliefs that the earth is 6,000 years old don't affect, like, what job you're going to get and how well you do your accounting. But then there's some places in life where people just don't really have they don't know what to do. Most commonly, I think this happens when you have kids. Like, most people have no idea how to have kids, and they're like, shit, what do I do? I have this baby now. What's my deal? If you are already stuck in an ideology like religion, you just default back to what they say, often with disastrous results. And so I think there's key pivotal moments in life where maybe your religion doesn't matter 99.5% of the time, but every now and then it really fucking matters. And then when it does, it's often going to give you suboptimal results that may even be terrible. And this is why we have good epistemics, because you say, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter if I don't wash my hands this one time, but every now and then you're going to get some massive bacterial infection. And I think epistemics is just information hygiene. And you're like, yeah, whatever, it's okay if I believe these few things because of how much value I get out of it. But then every now and then, a few times in your life, there's going to be these major points where it really destroys a lot of value. And that is why you should have stuck with strong epistemics the whole time.
Yeah, I think I was, like, in a particularly charitable mood, or maybe just complacent mood during that conversation. And the thing is, too, is, I know Thomas outside of the episode, so, like,
he's a great guy.
Oh, best.
Yeah.
The best kind of guy. And so, as opposed to, like, when I'm talking with Bentham's Bulldog, where, like, I don't know him and it wasn't a good conversation, and I'm, like, kind of just like, all right, well, that was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
This was one where I'm inclined to give as much charity as I'm physically capable of doing, because this guy's earned it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've only listened to, like, maybe the first 40 minutes of the episode. I don't usually go back and listen to them, but I was curious, and I am remarkably on board with a lot of weak epistemic stuff in that episode, and I don't know if that's how I really feel most days. Maybe just on 1 or 2 days a month can you find me in that mood. Because if you had the belief that the earth is 6,000 years old, yes, how often does that come up in real life? Almost never. It's like a Jeopardy question, right? However, the kind of mind that can house that belief, I think, is running on corrupted hardware.
Yeah.
It's not just that this belief doesn't pay rent, or yada yada, insert jargon. It's like, you can only believe this if you're capable of believing stuff on really nonsense premises.
Yeah. Well, as another example, it can have really bad effects. Like, the Jehovah's Witnesses were founded during the 1800s massive revivalist movement. And back then, like, saying that blood is sacred to God and humans can't mess with it, shouldn't do anything with it, don't touch it, didn't particularly matter. It just meant you
Low
couldn't.
stakes back then.
Yeah. It means you can't eat blood sausage, you can't have some black pudding, big deal.
Which, who wants those anyway? Honestly, sign me up, right?
Right.
I would have been a Jehovah's Witness back then.
And then fast forward a century and a half, and now your children are dying because your religion prohibits them from getting blood transfusions. Maybe don't throw your epistemics out the window so quickly for, I don't know. So here's my real question was, that I kept wanting to come back to, is, how did rationality fail you? I know this is probably just my own prejudices, because Thomas says it's not for community. It's because I literally know this thing. I feel it. I know it. But I think if there was a strong rationalist community with, people that met all the time and lived near each other and bumped into each other in the grocery stores and helped each other out with kids and stuff, that he wouldn't be so drawn to the religion. And, like, he often posts on Twitter, why are you leaving these $100 bills lying around on the sidewalk when all you have to do is go to church and talk to people? And I don't know, I feel like if we could just solve that problem, and I think it's going to be hard to solve that problem because you need a certain critical mass of people living very close together. But if we could solve that, then I think we wouldn't have as much of this problem. And it's really hard sometimes to say, my epistemics are so important that I'm going to be lonely.
I think you're right that we'd have less of the problem, but I don't think it would be even close to eliminated. I don't even know if it would be half, because I think another big component of people leaving rationality to join religions, or doing both, like Thomas is, because he's absolutely capable of doing both. The guy's a badass rationalist and he's a Christian. Like, tough. So okay, maybe that's my love of him as a person coming through. He's definitely smart, definitely rational. He's got this weird carve out area, and that's fine. Like I support his endeavor in doing that, I guess. But it's weird because I don't feel that way about most other people. It's almost like my judgment is clouded by my own personal biases of how much I like this person.
I mean, I'm still going to welcome him in all our spaces, but there will always be in my mind that he's gave up epistemics when it was really painful to hold on to them. And I understand why he did. There's only so much that you can sacrifice on an altar, but I know that's why I admire people who do sacrifice things for that.
Well, so the other half of, and tell me how this weighs into what you're saying, because like the other half of, I think, why we're losing people is that if you're just convinced by some pastor, that seems less. Oh, I was going to talk about how he arrived there through personal revelation, which is different, but there is a lot of existential angst that the non-religious have to endure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have an out to that because the stars aligned the right way and you saw God, I think a lot of people are eager to grab that branch if they can, right?
Yeah.
I can't fault anybody for, because you and I have talked about the meaning of life in the universe and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you found yourself waking up tomorrow and you believed you found the purpose and you no longer had that struggle, that'd be great. Except you would have to be you'd probably have to throw some other stuff out to make room for that, right?
I really hope not.
I have a whole thing with meaning of life that we don't have the time or space here to get into, that I don't wrestle with that at all.
Oh, wow.
Like the ultimate meaning of life in the universe, that is not a problem that keeps you up at night whatsoever. But I don't think that non-spiritual practices have a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
The solution is try to live forever.
Yeah.
And that's not a good solution.
Right.
One way or another, we're all going to die, unless we find some way to turn the universe around. We've either got, 5 years or 500 billion, but we don't have infinite years, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that if you woke up tomorrow and you were like, oh, I now have closure on this thing that has been weighing on me for 30 years, whenever you gave up your faith or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not gave it up, but lost it. I can see the temptation. I think with Thomas, it wasn't just temptation to, put a balm on all the scary thoughts. I think that there was a component of it that was his own personal experience that can't be relayed to anyone else because it was internal, that helped fuel that transition. It wasn't just like, I'm scared of thinking about the end of the universe. That was my long-winded way of saying that I don't think that more rationalists in your local community will solve the problem of losing people to religions.
Yeah.
But it would solve the community issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that is actually something worth aiming for. And that, if anyone wants to lose all their money or spend all their money and move to the Bay Area, you guys can be surrounded by rationalists there. But
that's what I'm doing next week. I'll report back on whether it works.
Yeah, you wisely gave it a trial run first. So,
Mm-hmm.
You're set there. But I think what the rest of us can do is cultivate our own local communities. And there's lots of ways to figure out how to do that, or to learn how to do that. You can check out lesswrong.com and search for how to start a meetup.
Yeah.
There are lots of guides. And anyone who really wants personal thoughts from us, email the show and at BeijingConspiracyPodcast@gmail.com, and we'll give you our own thoughts and feedback on that maybe. But I guess I'm reminding people that we have an email address. I don't think I have anything to say there that isn't already online. But
yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to just add that little thing in at the end. I don't know if that was a valuable addition, but here we go. We forgot to say this when Thomas was here, but he does have a Twitter account. You can follow him at SomeBrashAdam. It is linked in the show notes.
Yes, and while we're here doing stuff after Thomas left, because he doesn't need to be here for the housekeeping and some of the fun parts, like plugging the Guild of the Rose.
Yes, Guild of Rose has exciting new thing. The Guild is about to be starting a new workshop adaptation of their ever-popular Be Well-Tuned series, aiming at tuning your emotional and cognitive mechanisms. They're a series of well-regarded posts, and they're going to be turning them into actionable, engaging workshops.
It sounds great. And I do get all the email blasts and Discord notifications, and I've heard of this upcoming and stuff. So for those who are somehow still outside the loop, the Guild of the Rose is an organization that takes the cool stuff that we talked about on the rationality side of the fence that we had during this conversation and turns that into actual ways to improve your life, and does so in a way that bears fruit. There's testimonials, including here's one from me. I got life improvement from it, and I still do. It's great. I'll be enthusiastically supporting this new class and attending it if I can.
Excellent. I like tuning your emotional and cognitive mechanisms. It sounds good.
It's, for a lot of people, it's untapped. Well, I was going to say untapped fruit. Low-hanging fruit, untapped potential. Like, I don't think a lot of people think of how to use their emotions helpfully. I think people just have them, right, and are swept away with them. I think that there is absolutely a way to benefit from them in a systematized way.
As always, guildoftheRose.org or link in the show notes, and we really appreciate what they do.
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple feedbacks before we get to the last part of the show.
Sounds good.
First, Ask Who, intrepid listener, and patrons. Ask Who pointed out that in our last episode, I said, when I was talking with Liam, that I didn't think Scott Alexander had ever made an explicit endorsement political statement in the presidential campaign. 2 hours after that episode went live for the patrons, Ask Who was like, well, sir, and linked me to a post on Astral Codex 10 that says, Astral Codex 10 endorses Harris.
I think I remembered that.
Yeah.
But because Scott does such a good job of not picking a side, I think your intuition there was valid, even if you're factually wrong.
So factually wrong, though.
But it's good to have the record corrected. Scott did in fact not fall prey to the riding the middle error that you guys talked about.
And at the very least, I wasn't literally exactly reverse wrong. I didn't say that Scott endorsed Trump or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have surprised me.
Yeah, in the post he says, I endorse Kamala in any swing state and anyone who's not Trump in all other states.
Great.
Yeah. That feedback, since Ask Who is a patron, that feedback...
And a badass.
Check
Check out Ask Who Casts AI.
Yes. It's constantly posting Ratfic and Zvi's blog posts about AI and various things of interest.
And other blog posts.
Yeah.
The Zvi ones, I think, are all collated on a special feed. I think called Don't Worry About the Vase or something might be the name of the feed.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ask Who Casts AI. Google it and find the website with the link to all the feeds.
And I bring up that he's a patron because he actually commented on that before the regular episode went live, so I was able to introduce a correction in the show notes, although I didn't put an audio thing into the actual episode with the correction.
Smart.
All right. Also, listener Naj says that regarding the voting age, it used to be 21, but the 26th Amendment made it 18 U.S.-wide in the early 70s. The argument was if you're old enough to fight in Vietnam, you're old enough to vote.
I think I remembered that. My dad talked about that. He'd be just at the age, I think, where he could have been drafted. He didn't have the kind of adolescence that would have made him draftable, I don't think. That and drinking age for a while was 18, but only for 3-2, watered down beer, basically.
Okay.
Which always still strikes me as funny that you're still now old enough to vote for a president who will send you to war to get your leg blown off, but you can't come home and drink your woes away until you're 21.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
But yes, I remember the voting thing, and I'm glad that we got an answer from that. From, what was the name?
Naj, it's John spelled backwards.
Nice. Thanks, Naj.
Finally, I'm going to Less Online and Manifest and Vibe Camp after that. And so anyone who wants to see me, please come see me. I'm going to be running some sort of event at both of those because, I don't know, I'd like to. You
said both, but there's 3.
I'm running some sort of event at all 3 of those.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Because I like to give back to the community. I'm not entirely sure what just yet.
Right on.
But it sounds like you might be joining us.
I will be there for Vibe Camp 100%. I'm going to Less Online, unless something weird happens. I'm currently not committed to going to Less Online. I'll probably skip Manifest. I've never been. I'm not too much into politics, and it's going to be a busy month anyway, and some of us have jobs. I'm just teasing. You're busier than I am, and I always make that joke. Yeah, I'll be at Less Online and the week after probably, and then at Vibe Camp. And I also plan to participate. I at least plan to participate in something at Less Online, if not host my own thing. There's a good chance I'll be hosting my own thing at Less Online too.
Ooh, all right.
I don't know what the bandwidth is for how available the schedules are. Mm-hmm. And it's if it's already booked, because I'm now deciding this 3 weeks before it starts, then maybe I'm fucked.
A lot of the things get put on there as you show up.
Yeah, that's like Vibe Camp then.
Yeah.
Because then if that's the case, then I absolutely have something to present that will be fun and cool, and everyone should check out and then follow.
Do you want to tell us what the thing is?
No.
Okay, great. You have to come to experience it.
Yep. And at Vibe Camp, I plan to share my working in progress notes for how to be happy. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
All right.
All righty.
I'm hoping to be able to have something to communicate that's worth hearing. So,
Are we ready to thank the patron?
yes.
This week, we are thanking Substack supporter Bleeblah.
Dun-dun.
Bleeblah, thank you so much. We appreciate it. As Stephen was saying, only one of us has a job. So the other one, still keeps very busy, but not with anything that pays money. So it is extra handy for me, but we both appreciate it. And really, the emotional support means more than the financial support even, really.
It really does. And that is not to underplay the financial support, especially, again, Eneasz, you're crushing life, working 10 to 16 hours a day. He's going to downplay this. Don't let him. And
Definitely not 16 hours.
Sometimes this guy's burning the candle at both ends. Yeah, again, for unpaid labor. So everyone's support is appreciated. And if you can't support, that's totally fine. Share the episode with somebody you think might like it, or leave us a review. I think that's still a thing.
Like and subscribe, 5 stars, whatever.
And if you aren't a supporter and are considering doing so, you can find us on Substack or Patreon. Links are in the description.
Yep. So thank you, everybody. And thank you especially this week, Bleeblah.
Bleeblah.
All right. I guess that's everything. So, Stephen, I will talk to you again in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.